Ayo, it's me, MTG Jade here. Yeah, well, today, as you can read the kinda clickbaity, not really title, I'm making a video on MTG Commander staples that you aren't running, and you really should be running. They'll just, like, I did Command Fest yesterday, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and there I had some people asking me about a couple cards, and, like, they didn't even hear of them. And, I mean, these cards are just cards I run in every deck, so I just want to talk about them and stuff, some Commander staples that aren't too talked about or whatever. There's only like one free casting spell because I know a ton of content creators are currently like doing all those spells that don't cost mana and stuff. So there's only one of those, and they don't even talk about it as much as they really should be in those videos, in my opinion. Yeah, my setup's kind of weird here since I'm not that good at like setting things up, and I want to make sure you guys can see all the cards when I hover over them. So yeah, I kind of have this weird like Google Docs thing there, which I mean it just fills up space, so you don't have to see just my background, my computer. I think it looks better. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's start out with the lands, and right now we're going to be talking about what I think is the most important land. That if you're running a deck that has intensive mana colors, and it's a commando that is 4 CMC or higher, you have to be running Fabled Passage. It's like one of the best cards around, and people really don't do it. It was just reprinted, so it's a lot more affordable now, even though this is just the Throne Ray Drain copy. The normal one's only around like $6 or $7 on Card Kingdom. But man, Fabled Passage is just such a good land. It's basically a fetch land that gets you any type of basic land you need, and it comes in untapped without paying any life or anything. You have to control 4 or more lands, but that's really easy to do. And if this is your 4th land, it counts for it, which is just amazing. And it's just one of the best lands of all time. I run it in so many decks. I recently, because of the whole new Core 21 reprint of it, I just bought a ton of them and put them like in all my decks. It's just such a good mana fixer and is highly underappreciated. Like, it really should be seen more. Next, I'm having a card that people think is crap and they don't use all the time, Temple of the False God. Now, people all talk bad about this card all the time because they don't want to get it like early game, because then it's just a bad card, which, yeah, it is a bad card early game. But at the same time, it's a free ramp spell that doesn't really cost anything. It's basically like that one really expensive land that does the same thing except for you pay 2 life and it doesn't require the land requirement. Which, I mean, that's just really expensive, and it costs you life, which really can be affecting you hardcore, later game, where Temple of the False God is just amazing late game. And it's just a free ramp spell that every color can run. So it's just a great card, and it can help out with a lot of commandos. Like, my Ramsey deck, I actually don't think I'm running Temple of the False God right now, which I probably should be, but it just gives me my commando a turn earlier than I normally would be able to, which is huge and stuff. So yeah. Next, I'm not going to pronounce that. I can't pronounce that. But this card, it's a tap land. It comes in tap, which people generally don't like. But, oh man, it just gives you like a free brainstorm. And it's just great. I mean, you don't draw a card, but you just reorganize your library. And it's such a huge card for so many decks. And it just can really help out if you need a land drop. Like, you draw a 2-land hand and you really need a land drop to be able to stay on curve. This card just helps you out a ton. It can help you get out your commando fast and stuff. It's definitely underappreciated and one of the best lands out there. Lastly, I'm talking about a land which I think is probably the most popular of these, or at least on EDH Rec. Crypt of Whatever Face. It's just gives you a ton of mana for black, and it's not stupidly expensive. Like, that's the whole thing. I mean, if you're running any form of mill deck, or even not running a mill deck, if you're just running like a mono black deck, this just gives you a ton of things late game, or even sometimes early game if you're running a self-mill deck, and it's just huge and stuff. Like, I'm currently working to get a couple of these to put in my Meldroffa decks and decks like that, because it just helps out so much, and it's just easy, cheap mana ramp on just a normal land, so you don't need to even take out like a card to have a spell for mana ramp or whatever. Next, let's move on to creatures, and the first one is going to be one I'm completely biased about and might not be the best, but Chromatical. It's just, I love this thing. I remember when it first came out, it's just such a cool creature. If you're running a 5-color deck, this just makes your commando even better. I mean, like, most of the times, I just run this in a 5-color deck, because not only does it just make your Commando have a ton of keywords that it most likely didn't already have, but it also, when your Commando dies, it just goes onto the battlefield because of Bestow, and you got like a powerful creature there. Which, I mean, it's a really nice card that's definitely underappreciated. And now I'll go on to probably one of, if not the best card on this list that no one's playing, but they really should be. Thieving Amalgam. This card, I got it like 2 times when I was doing Command Fest, and in my Ramses deck. It's just ridiculous. It gives you so much value. Like, it's just, if you can keep it alive for your next turn cycle, that's getting you a total of around, I'm not going to do the math. It gives you a lot of power, because each opponent's upkeep, that player, you get a 2-2, and like, yeah, you could manifest it, but most likely you're not going to have the mana to spend it. What it's really about is, you just get a 2-2 just for free each time. You get, if you have 3 other players, you just get, each turn cycle, you get 3 2-2s. That's 6 power in total, just each turn around. And they're individual, so they're just great chump blockers. And then when you do chump block with them and they die, the opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And this is also just great about if you have like opponents that have like graveyard decks or whatever, and you're afraid, what if when the thing dies it goes back in their graveyard and they can take advantage of it? Well, you can just choose not to attack with that specific one. I have to say, it's a lot harder to do online and virtual. Like, I had a sticky note writing down what each one was to make sure I knew. But yeah, it's a stupidly good card that no one's running. And I mean, it's like a goofy ape snake. How can you not like it? It's an ape snake. It's probably my pick for the most underrated card, other than there's one other which we'll go on about in instance. Now we'll move on to a card that has every deck with black in it. I don't see why you don't run this. It's Avatar of Woe. So you need to have a total of 10 creatures in the graveyard for it to only cost 2 mana, and that sounds kind of intense, but that's in all graveyards. So literally 1 board wipe, and you can cast this thing for 2 mana and just destroy any creature that someone controls. And I just love it so much. It's just repeatable removal that is stupidly easy to cast, and it might seem like it's a ton of mana, but when it costs 6 less, it's only 2, and it's just such a good card. I don't know why more people aren't running it in like all their decks. Like, all my decks that have black in it, I run this thing. It's just so good. Okay, next we'll go on to sorceries, and we'll first talk about the 2 board wipes that are severely underplayed. First off, Dead of Winter. Dead of Winter. It shows, as you can see, it's basically a Toxic Deluge that you can't control, because its mana cost is the same. Like, the one bad part about it is you can't control. With Toxic Deluge, you could like stop certain creatures you control from dying, or whatever. But most of the time, Dead of Winter is just a stupidly good card. It's just a 3 mana Wrath. Yeah, you need snow permanents, but if you have snow lands, you're most likely going to be set most of the time. Especially unless someone's like ramping insane and they get some crazy stuff, you generally can handle and get a nice board wipe out there. And one deck which I was playing against in Command Fest, which was absolutely crazy with this in it, was a deck that had that one creature from Future Sight that at its power and toughness were equal to the number of lands you controlled, which I thought was the coolest thing ever, because all of his snow permanents were like snow lands. And that's like this stupidly cool way, because all he has to do is boost it by 1 by having like 1 non-snow land or 1 other type of land, like a Reliquary Tower or something. And he just has a board wipe that kills everything but his Commando, basically. I just thought that was a very cool deck design and stuff. It was definitely sweet. The next board wipe we'll talk about is the best mono white board wipe, without a doubt. It is Ravnica at War. Exile all multicolored permanents. This is a 4 mana exile board wipe. It's just so good. Yeah, I play this in my mono white deck, and I love it. It's like the best board wipe in the deck. It keeps all your stuff alive. Wow. Yeah, there's sometimes normally another person that's running monocolored or something, which kind of stinks. But oh, wait a second, I have to grab some. Sorry about that. So normally, like, there's other person that is running a monocolored deck, which kind of stinks at times, and there's certain cards that are monocolored that are running multicolored decks. But for the majority of the time, you're getting the values worth. You're destroying most people's commanders if they're out there. You're exiling them. You're getting rid of annoying cards. It's just a great card, and it definitely should be run in like every mono white deck for sure, I'd say. But yeah. The last sorcery we'll do is Road of Return. This card is still stupidly cheap. Like I say, a lot of my cards on here are Commando 2019 because none of them are being played. They're stupidly cheap and they're some of the best cards out there, okay? People are really sleeping on these. Road of Return is like basically like almost an Eternal Witness that doesn't come with a creature body, but instead comes with flexibility. You can return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, which kind of makes you sad because you can't do like instants and stuff, but I mean, it's a green deck. Most of the time there's not too many instants or stuff. But the big thing about it is you can also choose to put your commando from into your hand from the command zone, which is huge. With like people throwing commandos, people will just instantly remove as soon as they're on the battlefield. They do not want to deal with them, and that can be really annoying when your commando keeps getting removed. And the commando tax is just so expensive, you can't even play your deck anymore because your deck revolves around your commando and you can't use your commando. But with this, it just gets around that, which is highly useful. And then there's certain decks that you want your commando in your hand and stuff, and this is just an extra card to add to that. Okay, next let's go on to enchantments. Let's go with probably my favorite first, Kaya's Ghost Form. This card is nuts. Like every deck with black in it, I don't care what it is, you be running this because it just is amazing protection for your commando. You cast it, put it on your commando. If you get Path to Exiled, it doesn't matter, it's still there. If it dies normally, it's still there, you get it back. It re-enters the battlefield, which is pretty nice. But the big thing is also, with the Commando dies rule trigger change, you no longer have to choose to, when it dies, well, you don't have to choose, I want to put it in the graveyard, and then someone can counter the Kaya's Ghost Form. Because of the rules change, it's already going to the graveyard, and dying, the die effect still happens, so it instantly will return to the battlefield, which is really nice. And I mean, it's just a great card. I mean, the only way that I can see it ever being bad is if someone exiles and then also, like, removes your enchantment at the same time, instant speed, but that's really unlikely and stuff. Plus, it hits Planeswalkers, so if you have, like, a deck with a Planeswalker in it, you want to ultimate, but your Planeswalker will die, you put this thing on it, you can ultimate, and then you'll get your Planeswalker back with all the original loyalty counters on it, which is really nice. Okay, let's go on to next, another one for protecting your commando, Gift of Doom. Let me tell you something, no one's expecting this morph. Like, you're never going to play this for its actual cost, it's just not worth it. What you do is play it for its morph cost, and whenever someone goes to try to remove your thing, since it's like morphing doesn't necessarily interact with the stack, it kind of goes around that. You can choose to morph in response by just sacrificing another creature, just a random creature. Hopefully your deck has some, and you just give most likely your commando, but any other card indestructible, which protects it from board wipe. So if there's a board wipe happening, you can guarantee one of your cards survives, and it gives it Death Touch, which just means, hey, I can block any creature I want to now since I'm indestructible, and it will die because of Death Touch, which is just huge. Now I'm going to move on to the two meaner type of enchantments that people really should be running for when people play decks like Ozodek, because no one likes an Ozodek. We all have them. We have those people that run Cold decks. No one likes that. No one wants to play with those decks, but if you have someone in your playgroup that does, these two cards are there for you. First off, the most commonly used one, Imprisoned in the Moon. This card just is great. You either have to have the player has to have enchantment removal in their deck or land removal, which enchantment removal is more common, but land removal very uncommon. So this normally just locks out their commander where they can't use it at all, which is pretty great. And yeah, it mana ramps them, but it gives them a crappy, just colorless mana, which most of the time will just be annoying and stuff. So yeah. Then the second one, which used to be talked about all the time in Commando, and it used to be a big thing back when this format was earlier on its days, and people would run like sacrifice outlets just because of this card, but now no one uses it, which I don't get, which is Darksteel Mutation. It just makes the Commando a 0-1 with Indestructible, and I mean, that's huge. It has no abilities, it's just crappy 0-1. Yeah, if your deck doesn't have Trample, it can be annoying because you can't really, they have a blocker always, but at the same time, their Commando is completely useless. It's the best thing ever, and I love it. Everyone should be running it, I think, for sure, if you have white. Now, let's move on to the one artifact I have in this. Yeah, there's a lot of good artifacts. plenty of people talk about them all the time. I'm just going to talk about one that is just pretty basic. Sword of Amethyst. If you're playing a color like red or white or blue, you don't have much ramp. Let's be real. You don't all got ramp. Sword of Amethyst gives you a buttload of ramp. Like a ton of ramp. Very easy to do. It's on attack. It's not on combat damage, which is huge. And it just gives you a ton of mana. And it's repeatable. So it's just one of the best ramp cards out there. Even in like green decks, you can run this ramp card if you're like an attacky green deck. This just gives you even more mana and stuff. It's just a great card that it does see a good bit of play. It doesn't see nearly as much as it should though. So yeah. Now lastly, let's get on to the instants. I'm going to save the best instant for last, I think. So the other ones aren't in any order. Just one I definitely think no one talks about at all. But first, let's go with Renaissance of Power, whether that's pronounced, whatever. This is one of the funnest combat tricks out there. So, someone's attacking you. You can take one of your other opponents, and all of their creatures until end of turn, and just block with their creatures. You don't take damage because you blocked. Their creatures die, and then you get your creatures back at the next turn, at the end of turn, which is huge. It's like, it's just a better Aetherize. Like, everyone's memeing about Aetherize being so good. This is just, most of the time, a better one. Like, there's those times it's not, but it's just great. Also, if you don't really have a big board state, but your opponent does, and they're going to win next turn from killing you with their huge board state, you can just use their board state against your own cards by taking their stuff and win the game. It's a huge card. It's not played at all. It's like seriously sad how much this isn't played, and it's just such a good card. Plus, if you have a sack outlet, in case the creatures don't die, you can always just make sure they die, but it's just a great instant speed trick and stuff. Next, let's go with the next, which is also a combat trick-like effect, Mandate of Peace. This card is insane, and I love it so much. Not only does it just make it so your opponents can't cast spells, which is huge, it also just ends combat phase. So you cast this, you can only cast it during combat phase, but your opponent, they want to, a good bit of times they want to wait until the second main phase till they cast their spells. This just completely screws them over, and they're never expecting it. It just makes them just have a wasted turn. They can't attack, they can't cast spells, their entire turn is just skipped for 2 mana, basically, which is huge. And it doesn't even have, like, any negative side effects for you. And it's only your opponents can't cast spells. So you can even cast this on your own combat if you're not going to attack, and then cast some game-ending spell like Expropriate or something, and no one can react. It's just such a great card. I can't say it enough. Okay, next let's talk about a more meme card that can be really political. And though it doesn't win you games, it makes you like feel like you won the game. You feel really good about yourself if you can do something with this, and that's Glorious End. This card's just so much fun. It's a goofy card. I mean, it's kind of busted if you can have the Sundial of the Infinite to stop it, but that's unlikely. The main thing why I say you use this card is, so someone on the table is about to win the game. Like, they're going to win the game that turn. You don't want them to win the game. You're salty. They destroyed your creatures. They did something to you. You really don't want them to win the game. You can just, at their upkeep, end their turn, stop them from being able to play the game, aim that turn, and you'll die, but hopefully you'll be able to stop them from winning and someone else wins. Yeah, you generally don't win when you play this card, but you can stop the person that made you really upset and salty when you're already going to lose, and make sure they don't win. Which, I mean, it's basically a win in my book. I don't know about you. But yeah, it's a fun card, and it can be a political card if you want to. It's just fun, and definitely underplayed. Next, I'm talking about my one free casting spell. That's just huge. Force of Despair. This card, like, people have been talking about, all these content creators have been talking about free casting spells, and I feel like they all just overlook Force of Despair. This card just completely changes the game. So many times in Commando, people play a card that let's cast they have a single turn where they go off and win. It's generally not an overtime type of thing. Like, it does happen a good bit of times, but most of the time people go off in one turn then just instantly win. And this, if they're going off and having, like, casting all their creature spells in one turn, having, like, some crazy, like, I don't know, Sliver or Forced Sliver or whatever deck where they instantly cascade into all of their slivers, well, you can just kill them all, and that's just amazing. And I mean, also that's just free, just as good on top of it. Like, I'd run this card even if you couldn't exile it for free, because I think it's that good of a card. It's just comes out of nowhere. It can stop those instant win tones, which is huge. And I mean, it's just a great card that needs to see more play all the way. Now, last but not least, definitely, I'm talking about the card that inspired me to make this video. That I played it multiple times in this, and every time in the Command Fest, people were like, "What the hell is that card? I've never seen that before. What does that even do?" And I'm talking about Leadership Vacuum. Oh, this card is so good. It gets around Hexproof, it gets around Shroud. I mean, it draws you a card. I mean, it's just the best. Almost everybody's deck in Commando is going to have a deck that revolves around their Commando. So their Commando is their key piece. If they want to go off and win, they generally need their Commando. This gets around people from putting Hexproof Shroud on their Commando. It doesn't matter. You're targeting the player, so unless the player has Hexproof or Shroud, you're fine. And it, on top of just being a 3-mana removal that removes anything that's their Commando, like whatever their Commando is, and it's each Commando, so if they're running Partner, it returns both of them, which is just a cherry on top of the already amazing, like, super double layer Sunday. I mean, it draws you a card. It's everything you want. It has amazing flavor text and an amazing example for what this card can use cards on. Like, that dude's known for, it kind of has basically hexproof and stuff. And that just gets around it, that Commando, which is cool. Like, it's just a great card. It's stupidly cheap right now. Like, oh my gosh. I personally, when this first was announced and spoiled, I bought over 10 of them for like 25 cents. And it was completely worth it. This is the card that I can truly say it's in every single blue deck I have, because it is the best blue removal spell. Even just one of the best removal spells in all of Commando. It's so big and so huge. It's just a great card, and more people should run it. And the one question that people ask commonly is, well, if you're returning it straight to the command zone, do you have to pay Commando tax? Yes, you have to pay Commando tax if it's returned right to the command zone. This card would suck if you didn't have to, but luckily you do, so it's just a great card, and more people really need to be running it. It's barely known for some reason. Like, I'm telling you, Commando 2019 had the sleeper meta, new Commando cards that are just amazing staples that no one uses. Like, I definitely recommend trying these cards out and stuff. If you like the video, please subscribe or share it. I'm trying to get my word around so I can try to maybe one day go on MTG Goldfish or something's Commando Clash. I would love that. That would be nice and fun. So yeah, thanks for watching. Sorry this video is kind of weird and not well edited and whatever, but that's me. Have a great one.